The Last Guardian, Part 1, When Hope Was Frozen in Time. The salvage ship Peaceful Dawn drifted through the asteroid field that had once been humanity's home system. Captain Zix-7 of the Zolonian Empire ran his crystalline fingers across the control panel, his blue-scaled skin catching the light from distant stars. For 800 years, his people had ruled the galaxy in perfect harmony. War was a concept found only in ancient history books. "Captain," called his science officer, Lyra Prime, her voice carrying the musical tone all Zolonians possessed. "We're detecting an anomaly in Sector 77 Alpha. It appears to be artificial." Zix-7 glided over to her station, his movements graceful like all of his species. The Zolonians had evolved beyond conflict, their bodies adapted for art, science, and peaceful exploration. "Show me," he said. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a metallic object tumbling slowly through space. It was roughly cylindrical, about 3 meters long, covered in scorched armor plating. Strange symbols were etched into its surface, and a faint energy signature pulsed from within. "It's a cryopod," Lyra Prime announced, her crest fins fluttering with excitement. "The design matches ancient human technology. Captain, this could be a significant archaeological find." The Zolonians had always been fascinated by humanity. The extinct species had left behind remarkable ruins and technology across dozens of worlds before mysteriously vanishing centuries ago. Most scholars believed humans had simply transcended to a higher plane of existence, as all advanced species eventually did. "Bring it aboard," Zix-7 ordered. "Contact the Archaeological Council. They'll want to study this immediately." 3 days later, the Peaceful Dawn arrived at Zolonia Prime, the crystal spires of the capital city reaching toward the purple sky. The cryopod was transported to the Central Research Institute, where teams of specialists gathered to examine this relic from the past. Dr. Kes-9, the Empire's leading expert on extinct civilizations, approached the pod with reverence. Her assistant, young Tam-6, followed closely behind, his scales still the bright green of youth. "The power core is still active," Dr. Kes-9 observed, running scans with her bioluminescent tentacles. "Remarkable. Human engineering truly was extraordinary. The life signs inside are stable." "Life signs?" Tam-6's eyes widened. "You mean someone is still alive in there?" "It appears so," Dr. Kes-9 confirmed. "The question is whether we should wake them. This individual has been asleep for over 800 years. The psychological trauma could be devastating." After much deliberation, the Council of Harmony decided to proceed. If this human could provide insights into their lost civilization, the knowledge would benefit all species in the galaxy. They prepared a comfortable recovery room filled with soft lighting and peaceful music, hoping to ease the shock of awakening. The unsealing process took several hours. Steam hissed from the pod as ancient mechanisms clicked and whirred. Finally, the lid lifted with a soft pneumatic sigh. Inside lay a human female, her skin pale from centuries of suspended animation. She appeared to be in her 30s, with short dark hair and a lean, muscular build. Her clothing was unlike anything in Zolonian historical records, a form-fitting black uniform covered in pockets and attachments, clearly designed for function over comfort. The woman's eyes snapped open, revealing sharp brown irises that immediately began scanning her surroundings. She sat up with fluid precision, her movements controlled and alert. This was not the gradual awakening the Zolonians had expected. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice clear and strong. The universal translator provided by Zolonian biotechnology allowed her to be understood. Dr. Kes-9 stepped forward, her posture carefully non-threatening. "Welcome back to consciousness, honored ancestor. I am Dr. Kes-9 of the Zolonian Empire. You have been in cryo-sleep for 800 standard years. You are safe." The human's expression darkened. 800 years? What happened to Earth? What happened to the war? Earth. Dr. Kes-9's tentacles drooped with sadness. "I'm afraid your homeworld was destroyed long ago. The Sol system is now an asteroid field. You are, as far as we know, the last surviving human." For a moment, the woman's composure cracked. Pain flashed across her features before she quickly suppressed it. "I see," she said quietly. "And the Devourers?" The Zolonians exchanged confused looks. "Devourers?" Dr. Kes-9 asked. "I'm not familiar with that term." The woman studied them carefully. "Who are you people? What's your technology level? Military strength?" "We are the Zolonian Empire," Dr. Kes-9 explained patiently. We have maintained galactic peace for 8 centuries. We have no military. There has been no need for such things. Our society is built on harmony and understanding. The human's eyes narrowed. No military? How do you defend yourselves? Defend from what? Tam-6 interjected. There are no threats in the galaxy. All species have evolved beyond conflict. The woman was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. What's your name? Dr. Kes9 asked gently. Commander Elena Vasquez, she replied. Guardian Corps, Earth Defense Force, serial number GC0001. She paused. Apparently the last Guardian in existence. Over the following days, Elena was given a full briefing on the current state of the galaxy. The Zolonians showed her their crystal cities, their art galleries, their meditation centers. They had indeed created a paradise of peace and prosperity. But Elena saw what they couldn't: the complete absence of defensive measures, the naive trust in eternal harmony, the soft complacency that comes from centuries without challenge. You said I was found in the asteroid field that used to be Earth, Elena said during one of her debriefing sessions. Did your people ever investigate what destroyed my world? Dr. Kes9's crest fins fluttered nervously. The Council of Harmony determined it was best not to dwell on such violent history. Whatever destroyed your people is surely long gone. Elena's training kicked in. The evasive answer, the nervous body language, they were hiding something. I'd like to see the historical records, she said. That would require council approval, Dr. Kes9 replied. Such dark knowledge might disturb your healing process. Elena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Doctor, I've been disturbed for 800 years. A little more won't hurt. That night, Elena explored the research facility. Her Guardian training included infiltration and intelligence gathering, skills that made bypassing Zolonian security systems almost laughably easy. Their society had no concept of people breaking rules, so their safeguards were designed to prevent accidents, not intrusion. In the classified archives, she found what she was looking for. Files marked with warning symbols, buried deep in restricted databases. The truth the Zolonians had hidden from themselves. The Devourers were real, they were coming back, and the galaxy had less than a year to prepare. Elena stared at the data stream showing massive mechanical signatures moving through deep space, heading toward populated systems. The same energy patterns that had torn Earth apart were returning, stronger than ever. She thought of her fallen comrades, of Captain Torres who had died holding the line at Luna Base, of Sergeant Kim who had sacrificed herself to give the evacuation ships time to escape. Elena had been the last Guardian to enter cryosleep, carrying with her all the tactical knowledge and combat experience of humanity's greatest warriors. Now she understood why fate had preserved her. The galaxy needed a Guardian, whether it knew it or not. Elena closed the files and made her way back to her quarters. Tomorrow, she would begin the most important mission of her life. Teaching a peaceful galaxy how to fight for its survival. The Devourers had destroyed humanity, but they would not claim another species if Elena Vasquez had anything to say about it. The last Guardian was awake, and she had work to do. When peace becomes a prison. The Council of Harmony convened in their great crystal chamber, its walls reflecting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. Representatives from dozens of species sat in meditation circles, their bioluminescent forms creating a gentle glow throughout the vast space. At the center, Elder Prime Zek Alpha presided over the gathering, his ancient scales shimmering with wisdom accumulated over 3 centuries. Elena stood before them, still wearing her Guardian uniform, feeling like a dark stain on their pristine world. The universal translator carried her words to every species present, but she could feel their discomfort at her message. Honored Council, she began, I've studied your historical records. The entities that destroyed Earth, the Devourers, they're returning. My people called them that because they consume entire civilizations, turning living worlds into raw materials for their war machines. Murmurs of distress rippled through the assembly. Elder Prime Zek Alpha raised a crystalline hand for silence. Commander Vasquez, we appreciate your concerns, but our long-range sensors show no signs of hostile forces. Perhaps your awakening has caused some confusion about current realities. Elena's jaw tightened. Your sensors are designed to detect natural phenomena and peaceful spacecraft. The Devourers use stealth technology that masks their true signatures. By the time your instruments detect them, they'll already be in your cities. Dr. Kes9 spoke from the science section. Even if what you say is true, surely these Devourers would be willing to negotiate. All species can find common ground through understanding and compromise. Elena stared at her in disbelief. Doctor, they're machines. Artificial intelligences created by a dead civilization to harvest resources. They don't negotiate. They calculate the most efficient way to strip mine your planet and everyone on it. The Harmony Council exchanged troubled looks. Violence was so far removed from their experience that they couldn't truly comprehend it. Elder Prime Zek Alpha leaned forward. What would you have us do, Guardian? We have no weapons, no military. Our entire society is built on peace. Then learn, Elena said firmly. I can teach you. Humanity spent centuries perfecting the art of defense. Our tactics, our strategies, our weapons. I carry all of it in my memory, but you have to be willing to change. A representative from the Altarian sector stood up, his feathered crest bristling with indignation. You ask us to abandon our nature, to become violent like the extinct humans. Perhaps that path is what led to your world's destruction. Elena's control slipped for just a moment. My world died because we fought alone. We held the line for 3 years against an enemy that had consumed half the galaxy. Every man, woman, and child gave their lives so that someone, somewhere, might survive. Don't you dare suggest we deserved extinction. The chamber fell silent at the raw pain in her voice. Finally, Elder Prime Zek Alpha spoke. We will consider your warnings, Guardian. But we cannot simply abandon 8 centuries of peace based on the fears of the past. Elena nodded curtly and left the chamber. She had expected this reaction, but it still frustrated her. The Zolonians and their allies had grown soft, their defensive instincts atrophied by generations of safety, but Elena hadn't survived the fall of Earth by giving up easily. Over the following weeks, she began working with individual volunteers. Young Tam 6 was among the first to approach her, his curiosity overcoming his fear. Others followed. Scientists intrigued by human technology, explorers fascinated by military tactics, and a few who simply sensed the truth in Elena's warnings. She started small, teaching basic situational awareness and emergency procedures. She showed them how to turn everyday objects into tools of defense, how to move unseen through their own cities, how to think like a soldier when peace was no longer an option. The key, Elena explained to her growing group of students, is not to become violent. It's to be ready to protect what you love. Violence for its own sake is destruction. Violence to preserve life is courage. Tam 6 proved surprisingly apt at tactical thinking. His young mind hadn't been fully shaped by Zolonian pacifism, allowing him to grasp concepts that older members of his species found impossible. Guardian Elena, he asked one day, how do we know when the Devourers will arrive? Elena pulled up star charts on her portable display. Based on their previous patterns and the energy signatures I've detected, I estimate 6 months, maybe less. They always scout their targets first, sending small groups to analyze defenses and resources. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding across the research facility. Dr. Kess9's voice crackled over the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. We're detecting unknown objects in the outer system. Elena and her students rushed to the command center, where panicked Zolonians stared at sensor displays showing 3 metallic objects approaching at incredible speed. The ships were sleek and angular, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Devourer scouts, Elena breathed. 3 Reaper-class vessels, they're here to catalog your defenses and population centers. Captain Zix-7 looked helpless. What do we do? Our ships aren't armed. We have no way to stop them. Elena was already moving, her Guardian training taking over. Yes, you do. Your mining ships have high-powered cutting beams. Your cargo haulers have massive engines. Your research vessels have shield generators. We just need to put them together. That's impossible, Dr. Kess9 protested. It would take months to retrofit our vessels for combat. Elena smiled grimly. Doctor, you're thinking like a scientist. Start thinking like a human. She turned to the command crew. Get me direct communication with every ship captain in the system. We have maybe 2 hours before those scouts reach the inner planets. What followed was a masterclass in human improvisation and desperation. Elena coordinated a fleet of converted civilian vessels, turning exploration ships into makeshift warships through pure ingenuity. She guided mining crews in recalibrating their equipment for combat, taught cargo pilots attack formations, and transformed peaceful Zolonians into warriors in the span of minutes. The Devourer scouts never saw it coming. They had analyzed a peaceful, defenseless system. Instead, they found themselves facing a swarm of improvised defenders led by a tactical genius who had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. The first scout fell to a modified asteroid mining platform that Elena had turned into a siege cannon. The second was destroyed by a coordinated attack from 6 cargo haulers using their tractor beams to tear it apart. The third tried to flee, but Elena had anticipated this, positioning fast courier ships to intercept and destroy it before it could report back to the main fleet. When the battle was over, silence filled the command center. The Zolonians stared at their displays, unable to believe what they had accomplished. They had actually fought and won. Elena stood before them, breathing hard but victorious. "That was just the beginning," she said. "The scouts are dead, but the main fleet will come looking for them. We have maybe 3 months to prepare for a real war." Elder Prime Zek Alpha's image appeared on the main screen, transmitted from the capital world. His expression was one of shock and reluctant respect. "Guardian Vasquez, you have proven your warnings correct. The Council of Harmony hereby grants you full authority to organize our defenses. What do you need?" Elena looked around at the faces surrounding her. Scientists, explorers, artists, and philosophers who had just learned they could be warriors when necessary. "I need every able-bodied being in the galaxy ready to fight for their home, because the Devourers are coming, and this time humanity won't be fighting alone." The last Guardian had just turned a galaxy of pacifists into an army. The real test would come when the enemy fleet arrived in force, but for the first time since awakening, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope. When one human changed everything. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts, their massive forms blotting out stars as they advanced on Zolonia Prime. 3,000 warships, each one capable of reducing a planet to rubble, moved in perfect formation toward the heart of the galaxy's greatest civilization. Elena stood in the war room she had constructed deep within the crystal spires of the capital, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet positions, resource allocations, and defensive preparations. The peaceful meditation chamber had been transformed into a command center worthy of Earth's greatest military installations. "Status report," she called out, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets before most of these aliens were born. Captain Zix-7, now bearing the improvised rank of Admiral, approached with his latest intelligence briefing. "Guardian, our converted fleet is in position, 200 ships of various classes, all armed with improvised weapons. The orbital defense platforms are online, though they're mostly mining equipment we've repurposed as artillery." Elena nodded, studying the tactical display. The Zolonians had learned fast in the months since the scout encounter, but they were still facing impossible odds. "What about the evacuation protocols?" "Proceeding as planned," reported Tam-6, who now served as her liaison to the civilian population. 60% of non-essential personnel have been moved to the secondary worlds. The children and elderly are safe. "Good." Elena turned to Dr. Kess-9, who had traded her research robes for a military uniform. "Doctor, status on the Guardian protocol?" Dr. Kess-9's tentacles flickered with nervous energy. "The weapon is ready, but Guardian, the power requirements are enormous. It will drain our planetary shields completely. If it fails, we're dead anyway," Elena finished. "At least this way we go down fighting." The Guardian protocol was Elena's masterpiece. A fusion of human military doctrine and Zolonian crystalline technology. She had spent months working with their scientists to create something the Devourers had never encountered, a weapon that could disrupt their collective consciousness, turning their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Alarms began sounding as the enemy fleet entered weapons range. Elena watched the displays as thousands of red dots descended on their position like digital rain. "All ships, this is Guardian Command. Remember your training, protect your homeworld, make every shot count." The battle began with a symphony of violence. Devourer ships opened fire with particle beams that could slice through moon-sized asteroids, only to find their targets dancing away with maneuvers no peaceful species should have known. Elena had taught the Zolonians to fight like humans, unpredictably, desperately, and with complete disregard for conventional tactics. Mining ships dove between the massive Devourer vessels, their cutting beams carving deep wounds into armored hulls. Cargo haulers rammed enemy ships while their crews evacuated in escape pods, turning themselves into guided missiles. Research vessels used their sensors to coordinate attacks with precision that amazed even Elena. "Guardian," Tam-6 called out, his young voice tight with fear. "The Devourers are adapting. They're learning our attack patterns." Elena had expected this. The Devourers were machines after all. They learned from each encounter, becoming more efficient with every battle. "Phase 2, she ordered. Chaos Protocol." Across the fleet, Zolonian commanders began implementing the most human of all military strategies: organized confusion. Ships broke formation and began attacking randomly, using tactics that made no logical sense. Some vessels flew backwards while firing, others spun in corkscrews, and a few simply shut down their engines and drifted like debris before suddenly coming alive to strike at passing enemies. The Devourer's tactical computers struggled to process this apparent insanity. They had conquered thousands of worlds by analyzing and countering logical defense patterns. But Elena had taught her forces to be illogical, to embrace the beautiful chaos that had made humanity such formidable opponents. Despite their improved tactics, the defenders were being overwhelmed. For every Devourer ship destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. The orbital platforms were falling one by one, their improvised weapons no match for purpose-built war machines. Guardian, Admiral Zix-7 reported, his scales now dulled with exhaustion. We've lost 60% of the fleet. The Devourers are breaking through our inner perimeter. Elena watched as enemy ships began their descent toward the planet's surface. In a few hours, Zolonia Prime would be reduced to raw materials, unless... All remaining ships, fall back to minimum safe distance, she ordered. Prepare for Guardian protocol activation. Dr. Kess-9 looked up from her control station. Guardian, are you certain? The energy discharge will destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers of the planet, including our own ships if they're too close. Elena thought of Captain Torres, who had held Luna Base until the reactor overloaded. She thought of Sergeant Kim, who had charged a Devourer battalion with nothing but a plasma rifle in a dream. She thought of every human who had died to protect something greater than themselves. Sometimes, Elena said quietly, victory requires sacrifice. Activate the protocol. Deep beneath the planet's surface, massive crystalline formations began to resonate with power drawn from the planetary core itself. The Guardian protocol was based on Elena's understanding of how the Devourers communicated through quantum entanglement networks that linked every ship in their fleet. The crystals sent out a pulse of pure information, not data, but something far more dangerous. They transmitted human concepts: courage, sacrifice, hope, love, and the absolute refusal to surrender even in the face of certain death. These were emotions the Devourers had never encountered, ideas their logical minds couldn't process. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the entire fleet, Devourer ships began shutting down as their collective consciousness struggled to understand concepts like dying for others or fighting against impossible odds. Their perfect logic couldn't comprehend why beings would choose death over submission. One by one, the massive warships went dark. Some drifted powerless through space. Others simply self-destructed as their systems overloaded trying to process the incomprehensible human emotions Elena had encoded into the pulse. In the command center, everyone watched in stunned silence as 3,000 enemy vessels became 3,000 pieces of drifting wreckage. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by the simple human concept that some things are worth dying for. Elena sank into her command chair, suddenly feeling every one of her 800 years. Status report, she said wearily. All Devourer vessels are non-functional, Admiral Zix-7 reported, his voice filled with amazement. Guardian, we did it. We actually won. Elena smiled, thinking of her fallen comrades. No, Admiral, we all won. Every species, every world, every life in this galaxy. That's what humans call victory. In the days that followed, as the galaxy celebrated its salvation, Elena found herself changed. She was no longer just the last human carrying the weight of her extinct species. She had become something new, a teacher, a protector, a bridge between the peace the galaxy cherished and the strength it sometimes needed. Young beings from dozens of worlds came to learn from her, seeking to understand the human way of thinking that had saved them all. Elena taught them that peace was not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. She showed them that sometimes the greatest act of love is being willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The Zolonians built a monument to humanity in their capital city, not a memorial to the dead, but a celebration of the living spirit that had saved them all. Elena stood before it on the anniversary of the battle, surrounded by the next generation of guardians, beings from every corner of the galaxy who had learned that strength and compassion could coexist. Tam-6, now a full Guardian himself, approached with the latest reports from the Outer Rim. Guardian Elena, the deep space sensors are showing something interesting. There are signals coming from the Andromeda Galaxy. They match human communication protocols. Elena's eyes widened. After all these centuries, could there be other survivors? Other humans who had escaped Earth's destruction and built new lives among distant stars? Prepare a long-range exploration vessel, she ordered, feeling a familiar surge of hope. It seems the Guardian Corps may need to recruit some new members. As she looked up at the stars, Elena Vasquez smiled. She had saved the galaxy by teaching it to fight, but perhaps her greatest mission was still ahead, proving that humanity's greatest strength had never been its weapons or tactics, but its refusal to give up hope, even in the darkest of times. The last Guardian had become the first of many, and the galaxy would never be the same.